What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guy Cody here. Want to welcome on Matt from Inside the Horseshoe Podcast. Matt, how are you doing, man? Thank you so much for hopping in. Appreciate you.
No problem. I'm doing really, really good. We got the draft in like less than a week now, so it's very exciting.
Crazy,
Plus playoff
crazy,
basketball too
man.
for you guys.
I know there's a lot going on in the life of Indiana right now, man. It's
Oh yeah.
pretty bizarre how it all kind of happens in this span of this next week or so. So really excited for that. But guys, obviously we're going to be watching Chris Ballard's not end of the year,
And
pre-draft press conference. Matt, I don't know if you've been able to tune into this yet. I have not. So it'll be interesting kind of first reaction for me. But I'm excited to see what Chris Ballard says, man. Hopefully he drops a few tidbits on kind of what the Colts plan is here for the draft.
yeah, I listened to I think the first couple of minutes, but I didn't really listen too much to it. But
Okay.
yeah, should be exciting to see what he talks about today.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to share my screen here. I was trying to get it on Colts.com, but it was being stupid like normal. There's always some sort of technical issue, but regardless, we'll jump right into it, and then we'll give our thoughts, Matt, afterwards.
All righty.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So exciting time of year. Not just for, look, it's always great when the players come back. There's always some more juice and energy in the building. It's always great to get them back. And their attitude and excitement to get better. With Rusty retiring, we hired Mike Minnis from the Eagles, who, we had a pretty long search to replace Rusty because Rusty was so good. And we found a guy that I think really can help make a big difference in the team. And he's been outstanding. I know the players have been really receptive and to what he's doing. And also exciting in the city. I want to wish the Pacers all the best of luck. Kevin, Chad, and Rick, they're all great people. And I think they've just done a tremendous job building, that organization and that team up to be a playoff contender. And I wish them all the best versus Milwaukee here starting out. And then, of course, the Fever getting Caitlin Clark. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch her play in our city, and she's a tremendous player. All right, fire away.
Chris Murray said back in at the end of the season, like the rookie quarterback contract gives you some flexibility, ammunition to do things differently. Does it do anything for you draft-wise?
I don't know draft-wise particularly. Look, when you got a young quarterback, I've always thought, you got to protect him. All right, that's one, which I think we did a pretty good job last year, and I think we'll continue to do well. Tony's done a really good job with that group. We got a pretty talented group of O-linemen. You want to continue to add, playmakers around him. Being able to sign Pitt back, having, Jonathan now fully healthy coming into the offseason. He looks really good. I expect him to have a really big year. Putting more players around him is what you always want to do. Watching Downs take another step, have Pierce take another step. Those are going to be, important for us to have success.
I think you mentioned yards after the catch as something to add to the offense at other points this offseason. Is that just, when you guys look at the offense and everything?
Yeah, no, look, you always want a guy that can catch a hitch and go, or catch a shallow and, be able to make somebody miss. And then I think also, like a lot of the yards after catch, not only, from a make a miss run, but also from scramble plays. That's where a lot of them come from. Guys, all of a sudden the quarterback starts to move around. Guys break free and they're in space. Now it's harder to cover. The longer you got to cover, when you got guys that can run, it allows them to free up. I thought you even saw it some with Gardner this year. Times where he would start running around, we'd hit a shot, after the catch just because of his ability to run around. But look, you're always looking for guys that are dangerous with the ball in their hands.
Chris, how do you when you look at players, offense or defense, playing like being an elite maybe at one thing or being good at multiple different things, like how much do you weigh that throughout the draft? Like elite talent in one area versus, okay, they can do multiple different things at a high level.
That's a good question because, look, there's no perfect player. They all got a hole, every one of them. Somewhere. There's no perfect ready-made player. They all have strengths and they all have weaknesses. So what you want to do is, okay, this is what he does really well. Let's put him in that role to do that specific thing really well. And I think in the draft, that's one thing you're looking at. And that's one thing we're meeting with our coaches today and tomorrow. And we just had a long discussion about a couple guys. I'm not going to tell you what side of the ball, but what's the vision for the player? Like, it's easy for scouts and us to have a vision, but the coaches got to have the same vision, and we've got to be able to see the thing of how we're going to end up developing and what role this guy's going to play. And then if he does have some deficiencies, okay, what are the things he does really well and how we're going to use him to allow him to do those things really well?
What's the very open-ended question, but what's the biggest pitfall, do you think, whether individually or as teams, that you got to avoid in the draft?
That's a good question. That's a deep one. We could probably spend some time on that one. Character is always who they are is important. Okay. And look, we're dealing with young men here that are young men that are not fully developed into men yet. We're talking about 20, 21, 22-year-old young men that make mistakes. Okay. And I can live with some of those mistakes, but to me, the things that when they fail is if they don't love to play the game. I think and y'all have done this long enough. You've been around players that maybe are not fully mature off the field, but on the field, they love football. So they're going to do everything in their power to get better. So I think and it's the hardest part to figure out. Like, character is the hardest. Time and money. How are they going to handle their time? Because they've got more of it. And how are they going to handle their money? And then the outside influences that are grabbing on them. I think sometimes we forget that these young men have a lot of people that all of a sudden you're playing in the NFL, you're playing professional sports that are coming out of the woodworks to grab at them. So they got to be, and we're asking them to do it at a young age. Now, I think we do a really good job. David Thornton is outstanding. David does a tremendous job connecting with not only the player, but their family and who's in their circle. So we could go in a million ways there of what you try to avoid. The hardest thing is getting the character right. That's the hardest thing. And there's a lot of times we'll pass on guys in the draft, and I know people freak out. Why? Well, there's usually something we found out or didn't like that, we ended up passing. It wasn't a good fit for us. It might be a good fit for somebody else, and they might make it work, but for us, it wasn't.
You talked about not giving Gus enough back in January. You really haven't done anything outside the building on defense. Any reason behind that?
Well, a lot of it is what's available, okay, and circumstance for available. I think getting Dallas Flowers back will help. All right, so I think probably when looking back on it, when I made that statement, the injury part of it played into it. And then we gave them a bunch of rookies. Well, now they're no longer rookies anymore. I mean, Jalen Jones is no longer a rookie. Juju is no longer a rookie. Dallas Flowers, we're hoping to get back healthy. We got back Kenny, back in the mix, which I think everybody in the grand scheme of things would tell you he's one of the top nickels in the league. It's not like these guys don't have enough talent. Do we want to add some more? Of course. We always want to add competition. But I think what we did is we gave them a bunch of young players, with not a lot of vet presence back there other than Kenny and probably Julian.
Are you worried you're too young?
No, not anymore. I think they've grown up, and I think it's been fun to watch them. I mean, look, once you play 16, 17 games in this league, you've grown up to the fact where you're no longer a rookie. So I think we'll see better play out of them. And I didn't think it's kind of like the ass whipping y'all gave the O-line 2 years ago, and y'all just, O-line sucks, it can't play. I kept going, man, the second half of the season, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, there were some individual moments, of course, but I thought they got better as they played. And I think they'll continue to get better.
Hey, Chris, timing is everything, and the timing of this offseason had you spending a lot of your money on keeping guys back, right? Just because of that timing, was it always destined that this draft was going to be maybe more important than others in terms of getting help right now because you can't go out and hire new help right now?
Well, I think I think anytime you draft, I mean, look, the majority of your best players on your team, you hope they come from the draft. Okay. When you're building through free agency, I think y'all know my philosophy on this. And I think you can look through the league. When you build through, you can't get all your best players through free agency. Too expensive. And it doesn't last over time. I think the draft's always important to get. I think now in today's football, these guys got to come in and play. I mean, they do. They got to come in and play. And I think a lot of that, I think a lot of them are more ready to play probably than they were in the past for whatever reason. Like the one thing I'm blown away with talking to some of these really young guys is their football intelligence and knowledge of the game. Like, man, you talk to a kid from, I'm just grabbing a school, but Georgia on defense. I mean, Kirby and that group, I mean, they know defensive football. They know it as well as anybody. I mean, they have been schooled at a very high level that translates to this level. So I think to answer your question, Greg, I mean, I think every draft's important to get guys you got to get 2 or 3 guys. You'd like all of them to hit and help you right away. I know that's not real, but you need to get those guys to be able to play and make an impact.
How much of your thinking along the same lines? You're not drafting for just today. These guys, you need them to produce primarily 3-4 years from now to backfill your team. So how much of the philosophy is about today versus tomorrow? And I know coaches got to coach today, so their philosophy is different. You got to think long term.
It's always that. I mean, I think that's the general coaching, scouting, tug and pull that you get, where you'll have, we're looking at, okay, 2 years from now, this guy's up. We'll draft this guy to replace him. And then, and then on the coaching end, like, hey, screw that, man. I need today. No, it's definitely a balance. It's a balance.
You re-sign, a lot of your re-signs now match up timeline wise, like 2026, right in that area. Was that specific, anything to do with Anthony's contract, or was that
a little bit, and a little bit just how it kind of worked out. And these guys they're all kind of in their primes. And so it's a little different when you're signing a 24-year-old, like when we signed Kenny the last time, I think Kenny was 22, 23, really young. All right. So we did a little longer deal. The shorter deal is more, their age. They're right in their prime. I think it's and I think you're seeing it across the league. I mean, it's a little bit of a league trend. You're not seeing quite as long of deals as you did in the past. You're not seeing those 6-year contracts much we used to.
Where do you see the prime kind of typically ending for a player age-wise?
Oh, that's a little luck. I always tell guys, you play 4 years in a league, that's a hell of a career. I mean, social media and that brainiac of a world will criticize a guy for that, but like, this is the elite of the elite, and it is hard to have a long career. It is. It's just hard. It's a hard game. It's hard on your body. And when you need a little luck, you got to have some freak physical traits. There's some guys that are just freak physical. Like, I'll never forget in Chicago when we signed Julius Peppers, and everybody criticizes at 30, and at 38, he still looked good. And I think Buck's got a little of that in him. Like, where Buck's you stood next to him. I mean, God gifted him a little bit different. So Buck's probably going to be able to play as long as physically he wants to play. So I think it's a different case of what they have physically in their body to get a little luck with the injuries. I mean, I think every case is a little bit different.
A year ago at this time, you weren't positive yet who your quarterback would be. Now, obviously, that who you understand that player. Does that change anything about the type of players you get around him on offense, or maybe the urgency to get certain positions?
I don't know if it's urgency to get certain positions as much. It is a good feeling knowing that we like him. We like what we saw and where we're going with him. Like I said, protect, block and protect. It's one of the most, like, you just look through the league, you just look through the playoff teams. I mean, they all can block and protect. So I think that's critical. I think that's one. I remember Andrew used to tell me all the time, Chris, just make sure let's get me protected. I'll get the ball to get me guys that'll catch it and get to the right spot, and I'll make the rest work. Most of the really good ones, that's how they kind of roll. Of course, they want, do you want the superstar out there? Absolutely. But protection to me is always first and foremost.
You freed up a bunch of cap space with Buck's extension. How do you see the cap? Why did you structure it that way?
Just to make Twitter go nuts. Think I'm kidding? I'm not. Just want to see the reaction.
And
Nothing beyond Twitter? Nothing beyond Twitter?
That's my answer. Yeah.
You want flexibility?
Yeah, it gives us flexibility. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it gives
We
us
have to put up the
flexibility.
Twitter fire.
No, I know. It just gives us flexibility. Yes.
You
Chris, having a year with Shane now and kind of seeing that like proof of concept of what he wants out of his players, how does that impact the draft evaluation process with him?
It's really good because it makes it. Like when you go in there and you start looking at players together, and then when he starts looking at the board and okay, this is how I use this guy, this is how he fits. Man, from a GM perspective, that's a beautiful thing now, knowing that he's got a vision quickly for the player, and it's not a vision of negativity with many guys where he sees the strengths really quickly and will figure out a role for how this guy can play for you. And that's fun. That makes it fun.
How many, if you want to share first round grades, do you have?
Oh God, I just left the freaking room too. Why don't y'all come on in? I'll let y'all look at it. I want to say we had 19 to 21 right in that area.
You mentioned Whiteout back at the combine. Anything else stand out to you depth-wise after you?
It's pretty good. Yeah. I think there's a few positions that's got some real depth. Like the O-line in this draft is really it's excellent. There's depth throughout. I truly believe you're going to get a really good player in those mid rounds and even some later because of the depth of the group. And wideout's very similar. It is an excellent. Those two position groups stand out. They're both really good.
Was there anything that stuck out to you about your board this year, whether it's like bigger than normal because of the players that are around longer or even smaller?
I'll say this. I do think you're going to see a lot of offensive players taken early, in the first round. And I'm not saying it's a weak defensive draft, but it is a really strong offensive draft, especially at the top of it.
And Chris, has your draft philosophy or your evaluation philosophy changed or evolved in the last 7-8 years?
Yeah, I think I'm growing. Yeah, in a lot of ways. Longer you do this, even scouting or longer you do it, you hope you can grow and figure out, who are the ones that, you're always looking for unique talent, unique traits in a player. But then also on the flip side of that, making sure the character's always been very important with us without question. But making sure that we're drafting not only the unique traits, but also some substance with the tape. Now we've always been pretty consistent with that, but there's times you'll take a chance. And then I know where you're getting at because we're going to trade back and I can already see the article.
Well, to that point, you have always stressed the value of picks and have looked for ways to get more picks. Is your roster at a different place? I don't know how many roster spots there are.
That's a good point. History. I just go off history, and the more picks you have, the better chance you have to hit. Now, of course, you're not going to hit on all of them, but it gives you more of a chance to hit. We've moved up. We moved up for Jonathan Taylor. Like when we see one that's in striking distance that we think we can go get, we'll do it. But it's got to work out. Like always, and then you got to have two that want to make. You got to have somebody that wants to make the trade.
Expensive in it's always most expensive to do that in the first round, obviously. Could you see yourself actually considering a move up in the first?
Well, I just said probably move back. I don't know. I think it would depend. I think it would depend. They would have to get somebody within striking distance that we felt really was unique and a difference maker for us. Yeah.
Is Drew Overtree back with you guys?
Yes, he is. He's back. Correct.
We haven't talked yet about Charlie Partridge. He's got a long history of developing some big name guys. What can you tell us about him?
Excited about Charlie. Been watching it. He was at Wisconsin years ago. That's where I didn't get to know him well, but I know Coach Alvarez spoke just glowingly about him as a teacher and as a coach. And, you know, actually a few years ago, we actually reached out to him, and he's very principle-centered man. Like, he wasn't leaving Pittsburgh. He had given their commitment, which in today's world is very unique. And I admire. But you just look at his history of developing players and his ability to make them better. I mean, and I'm not talking about like average ones either. I'm talking about unique, from JJ Watt to kids that Hendrickson that's playing in Cincinnati. I mean, this guy's coached some really good players, and they all tell you he's one of the best ones they've had. So we're excited to get him. He's been great to work with and fun to work with, and got a great eye for it. So it'll be fun to get him. I know it's the first week with the guys with him. Coaching's coaching in my mind, like high school, college. I mean, there's good coaches at every level. Like it doesn't matter where level you're at. You can do it at any level. There's high school coaches, I promise you, that will come into our league and be perfectly damn good football coaches, man.
Just one quick follow-up on Ogletree, without getting into detail. I mean, are you comfortable with what you learned there?
Yes.
And you can move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely comfortable with it. All right. Thank y'all.
All right. Well,
Alrighty.
that will do it for Chris Ballard's pre-draft press conference. Matt, obviously there's a lot of nuggets in there that you could be taking away from this press conference from Ballard. What were some of the big things for you that stood out from what he had said?
I feel like we know what they're going to do in the draft. They're either going to draft a receiver, maybe Brock Bowers, which I don't personally want to draft, not because of I don't think he's good. No, he's really, really good. We have like 5 or 6 tight ends on roster. I would rather just let Woods be the guy because I think his potential is very high. But I do think they're going to go receiver, or they're going to trade back and get a defensive guy. It's going to be one of those two. It depends what receivers they want, who they view as a first-round receiver. And also they could trade back, take a defensive guy, and then go receiver second round, because I believe Chris Ballard's acknowledged this is one of the best receiver classes he's ever seen. So you can get a first-round level guy in the second round too.
Right. And he talked specifically about the wide receiver room and the offensive line class, both those classes being extremely deep. So that's a scenario where I could see the Indianapolis Colts, like you said, going and waiting until day 2 to go address wide receiver, right? But specifically, it was interesting because Ballard said, between 19 and 20-ish guys that he had first-round grades on. So that makes you question, does that mean the Colts would feel comfortable trading into the late teens, early 20s, if they still have a couple guys that they believe are first-round talents, while then acquiring more picks, right? That's been like the biggest question mark. And obviously Ballard trolling a little bit there, the local media and all that stuff when it comes to that. But I do think that is a reality, Matt, that the Colts could easily trade back and still get, especially if, like Ballard said, a lot of offensive guys go early. The Colts could get some guys that probably typically wouldn't be there in the, late teens, early 20s. That could be really good impact players for them. I could see that scenario happening as well. So it is just quite interesting that he had mentioned that as well. He didn't completely shut the door on a trade up either, though, saying that,
Right.
Obviously it said, it takes 2 to make it happen, but I thought it was interesting that he didn't just completely say, no, that's not happening,
Yeah. Like if Rome Odunze falls past 10, which I don't think is going to happen, but if he goes to like 11, I think a trade could happen. somewhere in
Yeah.
there, that 11, 12 range. It depends what the Jets do at 10. But if he slips and falls, because I do think one of those, I guess not Marvin Harrison, obviously. And I think this interview kind of closes the door on trading all the way up to 4. He kind of showed that he has no interest in going up that high. But if like Rome or Malik falls past 10, which I think one of them will, then I think that's when the possibilities of trade up definitely happen for one of those two.
Yeah. He did add as well, very adamant about protecting Anthony Richardson. I think, Matt, at some point the Colts are going to take an offensive lineman. Now, I mean, I think obviously we hope wide receiver and corner come first. But I mean, again, like, the depth was tested last year on your offensive line when Braden Smith missed all that time, and Blake Freeland's still growing as a player. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts did something on that offensive line. And also, I talked about this last night with Derek. You also probably need to start thinking a little bit about your future at center, because Ryan Kelly's getting up there in age. He's had some injuries, specifically concussions last year. I think that it would just be wise for the Colts to consider that. But regardless, just the idea of protecting Richardson. I mean, at the end of the day, Matt, we can talk about all these players, but the biggest thing, which Ballard talked about, is protecting number 5. And if he's protected, everything else falls into place, right? And that's what matters.
Yeah. I think they're going offensive line 3rd, 4th round. And watch out for Blake Fisher, the right tackle, to replace Braden Smith. Because Braden Smith, he might retire after this year. And if they let him go after this year, that frees up $17 million in cap space for next season too. So watch out for Blake Freeland. He's a guy who I think needs to develop for a year, but you get him in there, you develop him. I think that could be maybe your right tackle of the future.
We'll see. I mean, Braden Smith was, if he can put that season behind him, I mean, he's still one of the best right tackles in football. Yeah. So I'd have a hard time moving on from him. But again, it is substantial. Yeah, we'll have to see on that. But I thought it just was interesting that he feels like he keeps talking about the offensive lineman, and it's kind of like we have to talk about the offensive line being a potential thing that they would address, because that's just been Chris Ballard's bread and butter for years and years, is just adding to that unit. And so definitely wouldn't put it past him at all. It's interesting about the Drew Ogletree thing. He said he's back and they feel comfortable kind of where that situation is. So, I mean, that's another tight end on your roster still, Matt. And nobody's really stood out at this point due to different situations. But again, I mean, I guess you saw some flashes from Ogletree when he was playing. So you got a lot of young tight ends in there right now, like a lot of young guys. Yeah. So we'll see.
And that's why I would roll with the tight ends we have right now. Like, and look, I'm not saying that Jelani Woods is the best tight end in the league or a top 5 or whatever. No, I'm saying he has a lot of potential. Like, I want to give him that season to see if he can reach it. If he doesn't, then maybe Ogletree can become that number 1. If not, look at next year. There's going to be good tight ends. Mitchell Evans, a Notre Dame tight end, very, very good tight end. He's going to be in next year's draft. So, I mean, there's options next year too. I just would roll with Ogletree or Woods, see which one can really stand out and be that number 1 guy. Because I think they both have some.
Let these young guys go. Yeah, and also Will Mallory last year, fastest tight end in the draft last year. I personally loved what Will Mallory did last year when he was targeted. It felt like he made plays. He just didn't get a lot of playing time last year. So I am totally good with that. And really, for me, it's either Brock Bowers or bust for me, Matt. So if they don't get Brock Bowers, I'm totally all right with letting these young guys just develop. And hey, if nobody stands out again, maybe you talk about tight end next year. So
and I'm not going to throw a fit if they take Brock Bowers. Okay, because he's a really good tight end. He's going to help this offense if we take him. I personally would go receiver, or I would go defensively. I know a lot of people don't want to go edge. Latu's a guy I look at if you trade back as someone, had that injury concern, but all the doctors are saying he's good, he's fine. If he stays healthy, which I think he will, I think he's the best defensive end in this entire draft class. The dude's a monster. He's almost unblockable.
Yeah. Or say scenario where Dallas Turner falls. I know Atlanta's kind of the hot spot for him right now. Say he falls past Atlanta. You trade up and get your premier pass rusher. Like,
I mean, they were going to try to get. They're trying to get Hunter too. That's why I think edge is absolutely a possibility.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think we talk about it enough. Like, they outpaid. They were willing to outpay Houston. He just chose Houston because that's where he's from, right? So, I mean, realistically, Indy, if it was a different situation where it was any other team but Houston, I do think that Neil Hunter would be a Colt right now, based off of what we've heard. So that's definitely the thing. But I guess that's the good thing, because I thought maybe Chris Ballard would become content with pass rusher. I think I was wondering, I was curious, like, would he look at the stats and just lie to himself? Like, we've seen him do that before, And so I'm glad that they feel like there's still work to do at pass rusher. I'm glad that they feel like there's still something they need there. Now, will they address it? That's another question. But I think they know that, like, they don't have everything figured out at pass rush. And even though they broke a franchise record, when you dive into the numbers a little bit deeper, it's not as good as it seems on the surface.
Yeah.
So
it's really inconsistent. I don't know. Maybe they think with this new coach too, maybe the guys they have can get that consistency up. I don't know. This is the first draft in a bit where I honestly think they could go in like 5 different directions with that first pick.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying corner, wide receiver, tight end, or pass rusher. I think I could do any of those 4 in the first round. I do think they're like literally any of those. And hey, they trade down, get a guy like Cooper DeJean. He can play some safety too. So you could potentially say 5 positions. I mean, that's just wild to me. But it's so crazy, Matt, because like a year ago, we knew it was quarterback. It was just which quarterback and where the Colts would take it. Were they going to trade up? Were they going to stay at 4? But now we have no clue, like literally no clue. So, and also we don't know what the Colts are going to do. We've heard every single like rumor about trading up, staying put, or trading back. It's like, I don't even know, man. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I literally have no clue.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be interesting. I've gotten the picks correct the last 2 years. I'm not going to get it right this year, I don't think. If I get it right this year, I may or may not be in the war room. So if I give you guys the right prediction, I might have some. I might have Chris Ballard on the Twitter.
Heck yeah! Apparently he's on Twitter, so we'll have to find out which one is his burner, and we can go there. So I mean, we know it's not us, so we'll have to see. We know it's not Derek.
It's not me.
But there's a couple. Maybe there's a few others. I have no idea. We'll see.
It might be undisputed.
That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious.
That would be great.
Just like the worst critic of Chris Ballard is actually Chris Ballard himself. That would be great. That would just change everything.
He's the worst.
Hey, that would be pretty funny. But then
it would point out to the love of his edge. It'd be point out to the love of the edge.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's adamant about edge. So if that was the case, I'd be pretty happy about that. But anyway. Guys, that'll do it for our recap here of Chris Ballard's pre-draft press conference here. Be sure to, guys, go check out Matt's channel. Matt, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you right now? Everybody go check that out.
Yeah, so I'm at Inside the Horseshoe podcast, trying to get to 2,000 before the start of the upcoming season. Right now at 1.7, so we got a little work to do. But, I'm going to be doing a couple draft videos this week. I'll be doing one final mock draft. And we'll see if I'm right or wrong about that draft.
All right. Everybody right now who is in the chat, whether you are on YouTube, whether you're on Twitter, I mean, there's only almost 900 of you in here. So, guys, go find Matt's channel right now and subscribe to it. We're getting him to 2K right now. It's happening.
Yeah.
So
if a third of you follow my account, then we'll hit my goal.
There you go. We're gonna get you to 2K before the draft even. We're gonna make that happen.
That'd be fun. That'd be a lot.
So everybody, be sure to do that. Matt puts in a lot of work. I know. Watch your videos, Matt, and I appreciate your hard work, man.
Thank you.
I know it's sometimes, especially when it's like boring in the off season, and it's like it just like the views are down, just all that, it can get kind of discouraging. Yeah. So I just want to say I appreciate you, appreciate the work you put in, man.
It's no problem. I always record at like 1 a.m. So
right, because
if it looks like I'm tired, it looks like I'm tired. It's because I am.
Yeah, but you still put in the work, which is much appreciated. I mean, man, you've seen different people over the year come and go. Like over the years when they created a channel, they've been inspired, and they just stop uploading. So I've always appreciated the fact that you've kept uploading and you've kept, putting your thoughts out there. So everybody go help Matt out because he definitely deserves it. One of the hardest working people in the Colts circle when it comes to content. So
yeah,
definitely
there
go
was
help him
like
out.
2 times I think where I took like a 5-month break or something. Where
Hey,
I
we
think
need it, though.
my last video I recorded this past year, I think was it the Browns game?
Was it?
Yeah, it was the Browns game
Wow.
where I had
That was put you over the edge.
decent
I totally
viewership,
understand.
but yeah, like I just had the refs as the picture of why they lost.
Yeah, dude.
But
That's one of so that's one of the few times in a game, like post game, where Derek has literally been in tears. Like that was literally one of those times.
You know what's so bad about it too is I have an uncle and his kids are Browns fans.
Oh, really?
So yeah, and they're like his oldest, like, yeah, I know we should have lost, but whatever, we won. Haha. And I was like, look, if they didn't have those 2 stupid penalties at the end of the game, you guys would lose. And he's like, no, you won. No, we wouldn't have. It's like, yeah, there was that fumble on the first one. And then I don't know why they were like, oh yeah, pass interference or whatever, when the ball was 25 yards out of bounds. Like, do they have Mr. Fantastic out there that could just reach his arm out and catch the ball?
Right.
Like they lost that game. They got screwed out of that. And like I wasn't as angry, I think at least a day later, because I mean the Ravens game, there's a couple questionable calls there, but not as egregious as the Browns game. But there was a couple where I'm like, yeah, I don't think those should have been penalties. But yeah, the Browns game is ridiculous. And the week prior when they played the 49ers got screwed in that game too.
Yep.
I remember there were some really dumb penalties. I was like, what the heck? And then I think I told my uncle, I was like, look, I wish Deshaun Watson did not get hurt in that game because he was so bad in that game.
Oh, so terrible.
If Watson plays the entire game, they get killed. And then Latu did have to medically retire, but he went to LSU. He went to UCLA. They did look into his neck, and they're like, hey, your neck is good. You're fine. You could play. And then recently the doctors and medical people have cleared him as well. That's why I'm not as worried.
Yeah. Wasn't like I believe like Jalen Phillips had something like that or something. It was him. I remember like that was something that was like a hesitation for people.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you got to take risks sometimes. Like, you got to, like, we took a risk last year with Richardson. Like, Richardson, we didn't know if he was going to be really good, really bad. He was the one out of all the top 4 quarterbacks where everybody said, hey, look, he's a high risk, high reward. And I'm very happy about the Colts taking him and Chris Ballard taking that risk. And it looks like it's going to pay off. I would take Latu, trade back, get another pick, maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick, so you can add to the depth, and then take Latu. And look, Latu won't like be forced to be the only guy out there. Look at what will happen if you have him next to DeForest Buckner. Like you thought DeForest Buckner was really good, can't double team him anymore. So I would take Latu. Or if Turner did fall past 8 and past Chicago, I would take Turner as well. I'd take either one of those 2. I would go Turner first, but then I would go Latu after. And Mo should be cut.
I mean, what does he actually do? Like literally, I don't get it.
Like he's not bad. He's not bad, but he just doesn't do anything that the other tight ends can't do.
And you're paying him a lot more than every other tight end.
Yeah, and like if you let him go, there's no dead cap. So
right.
I would have let him go last year because there would have been dead cap, but you still would have had some money last year, and it probably would have rolled over to this year. But Yeah, I don't. All of our tight ends are not awful. Granson's a good, solid tight end. I don't think he's a number 1 tight end, but I think he'd be a really, really good number 3, or at least a good number 2 tight end. Like I like Granson. Granson's solid. He's fine. Mallory showed some things this year. I think he could be good. Woods, it's potential with Woods and it's potential with Ogletree. But Ogletree has done some good things last year too. Before
it is all
stuff happened, before he got hurt.
That's just the thing. It's a lot of youth and a lot of inexperience at this point. Like it's just a lot of unprovenness, maybe is a better word for this tight end.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Yeah.
Wood was the injury last year. Will Mallory didn't get a lot of playing time. Ogletree had the whole thing that happened. So, like, there was a lot of question marks at tight end. And so that's why I'm like, I mean, honestly, when you look at some of the tight ends that have been, taken, like George Kittle was a 5th round pick. So, like, it's not like these teams are allocating 1st round picks towards these guys. So, like, I think you can allocate these day 3 resources and adding some guys that potentially could do it. I do.
Right. And I don't care about the Madden ratings. I really don't care. Like, wasn't Josh Allen in the 70s or Josh Downs? Wasn't he in the 70s last year or something like that? Like, I don't care about Madden ratings. And then Brandon was asking Tarian or Mitchell. I would go Tarian easy because Mitchell takes plays off. And that's a concern for me.
Like, I understand that Mitchell's more physically gifted, but Tarian Arnold's playing in the SEC. That's for me. That's the ultimate factor. Is like he's playing against the best of the best, right? And he held his own and he played well. And he's still only 21 years old, I believe. So he's a young guy, got a lot of potential, is very athletic in his own right. I think he'd be a great fit in Indianapolis. I mean, he was the guy that I took at 15 for Indianapolis. So if they stay at 15, Matt, that's a perfect fit for me. I am totally good with that.
I'd be cool with Tarian or Quentin Mitchell is probably what he meant. I thought he meant 80. Okay.
Oh, Quentin Mitchell.
I thought he went 80. That's why I said he takes plays off.
Okay.
I saw Adam's comment. That's probably why I thought that. I'd probably still go Tarian, but I think Quentin Mitchell, his ceiling is higher. But out of 80, Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr. or Leggett, I mean, I would take Brian Thomas, and then Leggett would be my number 2 option on that.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, you saw Brian Thomas in the SEC going up against some of the best corners. Not the best corner in the league. That'd be Cam Hart. And he still had 17 touchdowns.
Hey, Derek's season. Hyping up Cam Hart, man. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Cam Hart's a great late day 2, early day 3 pick. AD Mitchell is absolutely lazy. When he takes plays off, I don't like that. Like, that's why I would take Worthy over Mitchell. I think Mitchell, if he through an entire game did not take a single play off, put his all in, I think Mitchell would be the better option. It's just he does take plays off. He did that at Texas. That concerns me there. Clowney, monster, but took plays off. And that's why I don't think he's where he could be right now. But yeah, I go Brian Thomas. 17 touchdowns when you're quote unquote raw and you're the number 2 receiver. And he had 1,500 yards. I mean, that's if you're raw and you're putting up those numbers, what are you gonna do when you're polished and where you're at where you need to be? Like, that's why if they stay at 15, defense, in my opinion, is where I would go. But if he's there, even over Brock Bowers, I might go Brian Thomas Jr. just because I think you put him in there as a 2, and I think you develop him. Maybe he passes Pittman and becomes the new number 1.
Yeah, it's so weird because I'm like, there's such good top end talent, but also there's so much depth. So it's like, what do you prefer? Like some of these guys could get to that point. Like Xavier Leggett could get to that point because he's got so much freak athleticism. But do you want a guy that you can say, hey, we're going to know? And obviously, the draft's a crapshoot in itself, but like there's a better chance that these guys are going to develop quicker and be like more complete receivers right away. And that's what we need for Richardson. I guess that's kind of the weird tension you have to kind of figure out if you're Indy.
Yeah, and that's why, like, my list as far as what I would do, maybe not list of importance, but what I would do is I would go edge in round one, especially if two of the top three are there at 15. I go receiver second round. I go corner third round because I like our starting corners. I think our issue is depth. Like, I think Johnson's going to be a good depth piece, but after him, it's kind of toss up in the air. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where we might have a guy or two hurt and we have to throw out a guy like Tony Brown or Daryl Baker Jr. So that's why I think Cam Hart would be a great, like, third or fourth round pick, because I think he can be that guy you can plug in and he'll still be pretty good for you. He'll be much better than what we had last year. So that's why I'd go edge, because you got to improve that consistency.
You do. Yeah. And again, it does come back to how much do you want to see what Charlie Partridge can do with these young guys still, like Kwity and Dio. I know especially Dio, that is the most intriguing. And a guy like even at Tommy Wall last year, he didn't play a whole lot, but he had some flashes. So, like, I guess that's what the question the Colts need to ask themselves. Or do you want to say, hey, we believe Partridge can develop guys. We're going to go get him one of the best prospects on the board. That is the question. And I can see both ways, and I'd be all right with both ways, I think.
Yeah. The thing with Verse is, to me, I think he can be a really good pass rusher, especially with the guys we have on the defensive line right now. Like, I think next to Buckner or Grover, I think he can develop to a really good pass rusher. It's just he's a dominant, run stopper. And when he's used to be a pass rusher, he's done well. It's just, you got to develop him to be that full time. That's kind of where you were at with Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye, great run stopper, pass rusher, needed to develop. And I don't know if he's reached where we need him to be yet in that department. I would still keep him as a depth piece, rotational. But if you can get Vert or Latu, that'd be great. If you feel like you can develop Verse into that, I'm cool with taking Verse as well.
I feel like you just need, like, that true guy that can, set the edge when it comes to getting after the quarterback. You don't necessarily have that. Like, I love Samson Ebukam, but I think if he's a phenomenal 2, but I don't think he's a 1. And so if you can get a 1, that would change everything. I really do believe that.
Yeah. I think just adding an edge, like a really good edge this year, I mean, this defense in general, I think, takes a massive step forward, and it helps our secondary out a lot too, because now you don't have to force them to stick with their guy for a long period of time. And then someone brought up Doolin. Doolin got hurt in training camp. That's why he didn't play last year. He did get hurt. Yeah. He was out for the year. Doolin, I think, is a fantastic number 5 and a solid number 4. But
I think
that's why he didn't play.
Great special teams player. You're definitely going to have. It's going to be so great to have him this next year. That's going to be so good for your special teams.
Yeah, especially with our special teams coach. I think he.
That's right.
I wish he. I'm happy he's with the Colts, but if he went anywhere else as a Notre Dame guy, I would be pretty upset.
Yeah. Right. So. All right, well, guys, let us know your thoughts on Chris Ballard's comments and some of the comments that we had regarding the draft. Matt, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Really do appreciate it. It's going to be a ton of fun here coming up this Thursday. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be at work, but as soon as that pick comes up, I'm going to go on my lunch break, and I'm going to run out to the car, and I'll make that video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hope that they announce a trade has happened if a trade happens. That's what I hope. Yeah. Like, well before. That way I can run to the break room, clock out, and then run straight out to my car and, get ready to make that video. But it's going to be fun. What if they trade back into the first round, though? I don't think that's something anybody's brought up.
No.
So, like, what if, let's say they go edge with 15, and then, like, Brian Thomas Jr. falls, or Xavier Worthy's there at 28, 29, and Steichen really wants them. What if they just mess around and trade up back into the first round?
Man.
Like, nobody's talked about that.
No, we haven't.
Nobody's brought it up. So
That's just
I mean,
the crazy thing. I'm just like, there's so many things that could happen. Like
Yeah.
even more than last. I'm just like, we knew there was quarterback. This year, we don't know anything. Like we have ideas, but we don't know anything in concrete. Like, and that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
And a little bit
It's like
scary.
last 2 years, we knew what they were going to do with their first pick. We knew they were going to go
Right.
receiver in the second round 2 years ago. Last year, we knew they were going to go quarterback. It was just a matter of what receiver, what quarterback. And now they could do literally anything.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Right. It's crazy, man.
Maybe Jim
We'll see.
Irsay goes trade up into the 4th pick, brother, and then like forces a trade and gives up.
I
like,
tell you, man, Marvin Harrison would be nice though. I know it's going to take a lot, but oh
yeah,
man,
it would be.
I'd love it.
But
Bring
yeah,
him home, man.
I don't know.
He wants to be
It's gonna
here. We want him
interesting.
to be here. Yeah, I know.
I would love Marvin Harrison. He wants to see her. Hey, Arizona,
Yeah.
just give us the pick. Just give it to us.
Exactly.
We'll
Exactly.
give you the 15th, and we'll give you
Yeah.
Mo Alley Cox too.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
Great weapon for you.
Great trade. He's a former basketball player. Don't forget about that.
Just
So he's
look,
he's
Kyler
Jimmy Graham.
Murray
He's basically
to Mo Alley Cox. I mean, that's like Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes potential right there.
Yeah. The height difference is wild. That would be wild.
It's much. He would have to jump up in the air to throw it.
I know.
It'd be like throwing a basketball. You have to jump up and throw it.
You'd be like doing a free throw at that point. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Adam,
all right, guys. Well,
not hurting the trade, Adam. It's
yeah,
helping
yeah,
the Cardinals.
we're good. Yeah,
It's helping
yeah,
the Cardinals. They need a dominant number 1 tight end.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, guys, let us know your thoughts overall here on everything with Chris Ballard today, pre-draft presser. That'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to go subscribe to Matt. Help him get to 2,000 before draft day. We only have a few days to do it. We're going to make it happen. All right. That'll do it for this one. Thanks, guys. And go Colts.
Go Bulls.
Yuck.